All right, good morning, sixth graders. This is Mrs. Cooper here. I am going to go over the practice test that you started on Tuesday and possibly finished. If you didn't finish on Tuesday, you finished it yesterday after your warm up on that quiz, and then you logged 15 minutes in the ALEKS program yesterday. So I'm going to go over the answers that you should have typed in on your document. So what I suggest is either you have this document pulled up on your screen, or if you're listening to this video on your own computer, split your screen so you have the video open in this document, and then you're going to make sure you have these answers correct. Change them if you don't. So again, you either want to have this document pulled up from your Google Classroom. It would be under November 17th. And then if you're listening on your own device, split your screen so you have the video open and your document open at the same time. So get that right now set up, and you're probably going to need your foldable. You can also write down any notes in your notebook, any problems that I work through where you really have no idea how I got the answer. You might want to write down notes in your notebook so you can refer back to them later when you start your test here in a little bit. So as you're getting that set up, just wanted to throw a little fun fact at you. I am in my 32nd week of being pregnant, so I'm pretty sure we talked about that early in the year, but I am 32 weeks in my pregnancy. So that means I'm going to have a baby soon, and we don't know the gender. So if you want to have a gender guess, email me your gender guess if it's a boy or girl, and if you have any name suggestions, go ahead and email me those as well. So again, if you want to email me what you think I should name my boy or girl, give me some ideas. All right, so we're going to start by going over section A in this first video. We are going to change this fraction to a decimal and a percent. So you should have used your foldable, and I'm not going to use my foldable every time because we got to start our test today, but I am going to refer back to what it says in here. So fraction to decimal, we're going to write it like we read it, 13 hundredths. There's 2 zeros, so I know it's 2 decimal places long. And I just put my numerator in there, 13. There you go. That's how you write it as a decimal. As a percent, we move the decimal point twice to the right. So if it was this, move it twice, 1, 2, that equals 13%. Again, correct these on your document if you did not get them correct when you tried them on your own. Pause the video as needed. So this is a decimal. This is actually a mixed number. It's more than 1. So over here for my fraction, I'm going to have 1, and then I read this as and 4 hundredths. So my fraction is 4 over 100 here. Now simplify. Always simplify whenever possible. Even if it doesn't say it, it's just automatically you have to simplify it. And they're both even, so I'm going to divide by 2. And that gets me 2 over 50. Well, wait a minute. They're still both even, so I have to divide by 2 again. And that gives me 1 whole and 1/25. Now, you could have divided by 4 and have been done with that problem. And that would have been the same answer. Now, change a decimal to a percent. We move it twice to the right. That would be 104%. So that's more than 100%. That's awesome. All right, so now we're given the percent, 7%. Let's change this to a decimal. Well, in a percent, the decimal point, if it's not there, is imaginary. It's behind the number. We move it twice to the left. That's what your foldable would tell you. Then we have an empty loop. Put a 0 in there. So as a decimal, this would be 7 hundredths. Well, as a fraction, I just write it how I read it. 7 over 100. Okay. Again, pause as needed. This is a fraction. I'm going to write it as a decimal. But do I have a place value called the 25th place value? No, I don't have a place value called the 25th place value. So I have to get it to be 10, 100, or 1,000. Well, think of money. 25 represents how much a quarter is. If you multiply that by 4, you get 100. So whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And 23 times 4 is 92. Now, I can write it as a decimal, 92 hundredths. Well, it's 2 decimal places is the hundredths place. And I just put my numerator in there, so it's 92 hundredths. Now change that to a percent. Your foldable will tell you to move the decimal point twice to the right. And that would equal 92%. Okay, next one. The decimal is 56 hundredths. Well, I'm going to write it as a fraction. To start with, it's 56 over 100. But now I have to simplify. So I need to divide by a common factor. And typically you're always going to divide by 2, 3, or 5. In this case, they're both even, so let's divide by 2. And you're going to get 50 as your denominator. And I think 28 is your numerator. Well, wait a minute, they're still both even, so we have to divide yet again. We would divide by 2. You get 25 as your denominator and 14 as your numerator. Okay, so 56 hundredths and that fraction are equivalent. Now change this to a percent, just like we've done a few times already. Move it twice to the right, the decimal point, that is. That would be 56%. Okay, now the next one, this is a percent greater than 100, so we have to change it to a decimal. It's imaginary, move it twice to the left. So that would be 1.76. Write that as a fraction. That's actually going to be a mixed number because I have a 1. So it's 1 whole and 76, 2 decimal places, is the hundredths place. And you guessed it, now we have to simplify. Well, I can simplify it by 2 because they're both even again. And that would get me 38/50. Simplify by 2 again, and that would get me 19/25. So 1 whole and 19/25. Now, this is kind of a lot of work, so you maybe didn't type it in your computer, but you did it on your notebook. That's fine. Or you did it right now in your notebook. It's more practice. That's great. Okay, the next one, 15 tenths. Well, we're going to write that as let's write that as a mixed number. So 10 goes into 15 once. What's left over? 5. My denominator stays 10. So let's write 1 and 5 tenths. 1 whole, 5 tenths. A tenth is 1 decimal place. So that's how you write it as a decimal. Change it to a percent. Move the decimal point twice to the right. 1, 2. That would be 150%. All right, last one, 8 tenths. Well, I read it correctly, so that's how I read it. Now simplify. Divide by a common factor. In this case, it's 2. That's 4/5. Now change it to a percent. It was 0.8. Change it to a percent. I go to the right. 1, 2. 80%. Okay, I kind of went through that a little fast, but this is our review. We've done this for a couple weeks now. You can pause the video, go back as needed, update your answers in your practice tests. So you can use any of this in your Chapter 2 foldable on the test. So that's it for video 1. I'm going to do part B next.